Alright, so we have our demo for our finance tracker proof of concept here. So let's make sure we can build this. Okay, excellent. So what we're looking at is we have some sample input CSV files. So let me show you what these look like here. So just here's some sample data. Okay, so we have our start date, just a day that maybe you look in your transactions and you see that an event happened on this day. Then you have the name, obviously, of what it is, the estimated amount, or the exact amount if you know, preferably, how frequent it happens, what kind of frequency we're talking here. So if you count on, maybe if you're a rideshare person and you do $50 worth every week on average, then you can throw that in here. You might put that as an estimate or exact or maximum. That's not exactly handled yet, but it could definitely be something. And then perhaps maybe you get paid on a 2-week basis, so you might put something like this, and maybe you estimate to like the weekday before, or day of week, something like that. Or maybe it's flexible, it's like you have moving expenses, for example, or some other extra trip or something that you're estimating. And then finally, which bank account you're using, and this is going to be very important later on. So you're getting a paycheck through maybe a checking account, you're paying your rent through a checking account, but then maybe you pay internet through this credit card, and then maybe you have another card for your food, or maybe you have a travel card or hotel or something like that. So that's for your expenses. And then the other one is for which bank accounts you have. So I just threw in some sample ones here. So maybe you'll enter the formal name of the account, maybe throw in a code that's just for your benefit to match up kind of a name to an account. Then whether it's credit or debit, which is important because credit cards will have more fields to them, such as payment date, statement date, maybe the last 4 digits as a key for identifying which account you're using. And then these are the fun parts here. So you have your unpaid statement values. So what's going to be on the next statement, and then your total balance. So basically you can take the difference of the first value minus this value to calculate what the next statement is going to say. And then maybe some credit card points or miles or something that you have on that card. That's a future feature to track maybe how many points you need to save up to afford a particular vacation. And so the important thing here is that the connection of an expense to a credit card, because let's say we pay for our internet on the 20th on our Freedom card, so that then it's very important that that 20th will round to the next, or increment up to the next statement date. So actually the next payment would be the month after that on the next payment date. So basically taking into account events happening now, but then calculating when you're going to actually pay for them. And then a future feature as well, which isn't supported yet, but just it's kind of fun and will be very useful, is your wish list. So you ideally would have a ranked list of items that maybe you wish you could afford or are waiting to save up for. And so ideally here you'd put down the cost that you're looking at, Obviously these are one-time expenses, and then ideally then using the graph that you're about to see, you can then project out when you can most likely afford these items. And another feature that will be added are certain thresholds. So maybe you can set that you have to have 6 months worth of rent saved up, or rent saved up before you make a purchase, such as a $1,000 TV. So that's something that in the future a user could configure. So let's jump into seeing how this actually works. So we have our inputs as a CSV file here. So we're just going to jump open, and so I have two different directories here. One's for my real financial information, so I can actually get some utility out of this, and the other one is just sample inputs, which you just saw, so that my financial information is not out there for everybody to see. But I can still get some good utility out of this and prove how useful it is on a personal basis. So we're going to not use the real values for this demo, but we are going to print out our table. These are just other toggles that we don't need to worry about for right now. So let's just get this running. So we're going to be ingesting those inputs that you just saw. And basically what's going to happen here is every single one of those items that you saw is going to be populated into a kind of future values list. So something like energy, which isn't necessarily on the 21st, but is, or actually a better example would be trip expenses. So this, if you remember, was put on our American Airlines card, but it was for late September, but we have calculated that if it's on this card, it'll be charged on this date. So that's very important, so that someone can project out when they can afford things based on credit card statement delays, which helps a lot of people out. And then we also have here our monthly groceries, if you notice, all lined up with our Chase Freedom. You can see here we have the value and then also a running total for that day. And let's look at the graph. So I'll actually get back to this one. Here's the first one we want to look at. So this is just if you were to take a running total of each day about how much cash you'd have in your checking account. And so then we can see big dips here, perhaps for rent or credit card payment. And so a big spike for maybe a paycheck. So this is just a sample, and you can see here the scale, and obviously this needs some work. This is just showing how many days into the future we're talking, and then net worth. This whole thing could look a little bit nicer, but this is just a demo. So you can see we're doing kind of healthy, blah, blah, but even though we have something like, let's say we take right here, you'd say, oh, I have $6,000, but on this day, you'd have just over 500, maybe that's like $700. So you don't want to be spending money as if you had 6,000 when really in the future you're going to have 500. So the way to look at that is, we want to look at the lowest value each time. So if we're right here, we want to spend money as if we're right here. So that's what this graph is for. So if you notice each of these corners that we pointed out as low, 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 it's kind of a local minimum, those become critical. So basically everything is flattened down to the lowest future value. So basically from day 0 to day, was that 55, you have to live as if you have only this amount of money to spend, or else you're going to go broke. And then once you hit this day, you jump up, and the next value to worry about is about right here at 2,000. Boom. So basically this is a very simple way so that someone can say, hey, my standard of living is going up. I'm saving, let's see, 240, it's about 4 months from now, or 4 months from now. 8 months from now, you can say, okay, I can afford about $8,500 worth of items So maybe your thresholds allow that to, you to make a large purchase on that date. So maybe populate that part of things. So the cool part is this is flexible here, the dates. So we could do this where we go in and obviously I could come up with a better interface for this, but I could crank this out to 2050. Let's do 2020. Show you a bit more. This is assuming that someone has the same lifestyle and doesn't get any pay raises. So you can see it's kind of noisy, because of the ups and downs. Looks like a heartbeat, but then that simplifies things out very nicely, so that someone can look at it and say, okay, right here, okay, I have this value, but this is what it really should be considered to be conservative with my spending. So looks like about here is like 2 years into the future. You could say, oh, I could have an extra $24,000 saved up about here. So it's kind of nice. They can take a look at that. And ideally, then you could just tweak to form a budget of some sort. You could tweak each of these values to better increase your graph or account for different upcoming things, like maybe you had an emergency expense in here of a one-time thing, and then you reproject out everything and see if you're going to be okay, or which card you should put a certain expense on, if you want to delay that payment as long as possible. So there are a lot of really interesting things you could do with this. So that is a first look demo at what we